Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to another video. This is a paid request, this time for Josh. Thank you so much for that. And for those analysts who request any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Links are down below in the info box. I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. And this is for The Laughing Policeman from 1973, which I've seen once before, and it's a pretty decent film. It's not an action film. It's fairly procedural, and it's definitely helped by having a fairly good cast involved. You got Walter Matthau being a pretty damn serious character in the movie. Even the Tatum Pelham 123 had a bit of a sense of humor, wisecracking. Not the case here. He's getting pretty serious. He is teamed up with Bruce Dern, who was in The Burbs and been in plenty of other stuff. And pretty much the setup is there's this bus massacre that happens where a guy wearing suit, having a suitcase, got pretty much a machine gun, tears the shit out of this bus. He's on the back of the bus, tears the shit out of everybody. Fairly violent scene for 1973. He gets away, the cops come investigate, and Walter Matthau realizes that one of his partners, police partners, he was on the bus as well. So now he's very determined to find out what happened, who did this. And it's definitely not a film that spells stuff out. There's not a whole lot of, I would say, exposition, things of that nature. It's Walter Matthau and Bruce Dern. And Bruce Dern, he's more of the guy that is a wise ass. And Matthau's more stern in his approach. And they investigate. It's one of those films that has a bit of a different feel to it because, like I said, usually in these type of movies there's going to be a lot of like car chases, foot chases, action scenes, buddy cop banter. Not really the case here. It's definitely a world that feels lived in, like these characters have had lives before the cameras have popped onto the screen here. And it's kind of has a matter-of-fact feel to it. So in a weird way it feels more real. Because they're in their investigation, and at times they go through dead ends, or they think they got something and nothing comes up. So in a weird way, sometimes it seems a bit more confusing, although it's not. But like they'll talk to this witness, but Sally went nowhere, and they talk over here and there. And like I say, if you're looking for more of a typical buddy cop action film, that's not the case with this. Walter Matthau does a pretty good job. It's nice to see him, because I'm so used to him in Grumpy Old Men, Grumpy Old Men, and the other films with Jack Lemmon, The Odd Couple, that play much more of a serious character. Bruce Dern, always a capable actor in whatever movies he's in. I mentioned The Burbs. He was also in Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis. The highlight for me is Louis Gossett Jr., who I love. He was an officer and a Gentleman, which he won the Oscar for. He was in The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, which he's great in that. Iron Eagle, and the sequels to that movie. He's another cop. While I do like Bruce Dern, I will admit there's a part of me that wishes it was Louis Gossett Jr. teamed up with Walter Matthau. Because Bruce Dern, he does a good job. His character's not really the most likable because the character's a bit... He's a bit of a bigot. And I don't know, there's certain scenes where he'll like treat a suspect who happens to be black. And it's a bit iffy on how he does it. Even Louis Gossett Jr. has to pause as the treatment to this. And you think it's going to lead to something more, and it doesn't. And in fact, Louis Gossett Jr. kind of disappears from the movie afterward. And that's probably one of my issues with the film, is that, again, nothing really comes of it. There's no come to blows moment where Lewis like pushes Brewster against the wall, or Brewster realizes he's got to change his ways, or he's not doing this the right way or the correct way. Like I said, nothing plot wise comes of that. And Louis Gossett Jr. just has such a great personality in this film, and he walks away with some of the best lines. Like there's a suspect that they're looking to. Not even that, but just this pimp guy who's beating his woman, and Louis Gossett Jr. is giving him shit and pushes him down, and the guy reaches for something, and Louis says, "Whatever you're reaching for, it better be a sandwich because you're going to have to eat it." Best line in the movie. Or there's another bit where he's talking to this guy and goes, "Listen, you got three choices. You go to the morgue, you go to the hospital, or you get in that car." And just he could be tough, but he could be funny and likable. And like I said, big fan of the actor. I said that would be, to me, a much more interesting character to put with Walter Matthau. Keep the same lines, keep the same bits, but again, it's not. Bruce Dern's a good actor, but I can't really say I cared about his character. Just the way he was behaving at times, and maybe that's the purpose, but I don't know. He does a good. It's a kind of a 50-50 for me. He's doing a good job at the same time. I think Louis Gossett Jr. is more interesting. And like I said, you don't really get a whole lot about their background. Walter Matthau does have a home life, but at the same time, he's kind of cold with his wife. And his wife's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And again, it's a catch-22. It's interesting because it's not typical. It's not, let's stop for 5 minutes and explain this guy's life. So you just kind of putting the pieces together yourself, letting the viewer use their nod in their brain a bit or two. And I wouldn't say there's zero action. There's the beginning bus massacre scene. There's a bit where this guy has hostages, and there's a bit of a shootout. Some decent violent moments, again, for 1973. And like I said, they get a lot of false leads, and that can kind of make it hard to follow what's happening. But at the same time, it'll take maybe a minute or two extra for you to follow along, but it's not completely confusing, far from it. And one thing leads to another, and the something to do with what Walter Matthau's old partner was working on, which dealt with a case that Matthau himself had worked on years ago, and this violent act that had happened, and nothing had gone anywhere, and it looks like his friend was trying to help him out, but then, like I said, there's all these people they're talking to. They're talking to this girl that seemed to have relations with his old partner, and Matthau's even get pissed at her and even slaps her across the face. This is the 70s, folks. It's a different time. Well, at least, they figure out maybe who's doing it. They go on a hunch, and there's stakeouts, and they're checking this guy out. And like I said, there is a bit of a action bit. There's a bit of a car chase where they're chasing the guy, and they get the guy, and spoiler alert, you have a bit of a standoff, so to speak, on another bus. So like I say, it's, at times it almost seems like what you would see in a TV show today. Not in terms of direction, but in terms of like Law and Order, CSI, where it gets kind of, we're following the cops and how they go about the case, and in this case, at least it does feel a bit more real and less movie terms of, again, your typical tropes. Let's say the body cop banter and all that stuff. Like I say, it's sad that Louis Gossett Jr. is not in the third act, because I think he would have been a big plus for that. Bruce Stern, because his character's a bit of a bigot and a homophobe, and he never changes his ways. So it's kind of hard to care a whole lot for his character, at least for me. It also has an awful title. The Laughing Policeman is like one of the worst titles you could give to a movie like this. Because no, he never laughs. Apparently in the script he was going to laugh, but then Walter Matthau and such put the kibosh on that, and it's like, well, why the fuck is it called The Laughing Policeman then? It's such a stupid title for the movie. Like you look at it and you go, The Laughing Policeman? Like you're thinking it's what fucking Jerry Lewis is the cop, or you think it's gonna be Walter Matthau playing like he would back in the day in The Odd Couple, or later on Grumpy Old Men or Out to Sea. No, it's not comedy. It's not comedic at all. So, like I said, awful title. They should have changed it, because I don't know if it really did much business when it came out. So yeah, it's a film that maybe I would watch again. Not for a while though. It's not the most exciting, as in for what people are looking for in today's age, but it's worth a watch, at least for the cast. But like I said, if it gets to a point where you're kind of getting a bit lost, and like I said, this it's trying to go a bit more into maybe this is how cops would really go through, and there would be a lot of dead ends. There would be a lot of leads that go nowhere. And like I said, I can appreciate some of the details that the director put into, like when one of the victims of the busmaster is still alive, and you see him carted in, and you see the various doctors trying to get him stable, and all the technical terms. And they're talking as if the director just hired a bunch of doctors and nurses for real and said, okay, this is what's happening. You do what's the procedure, we'll film it. And so they're talking, it just felt natural. Same with how cops would secure the perimeter of the crime and stuff like that. Also, some other people recognize their boss was Anthony Zerbe. I forget his name, but I remember he was we'd come to find out, the main bad guy in See No Evil, Hear No Evil, who is also blind. Like Richard Pryor's character's blind. You find out the main head honcho bad guy's blind as well. And there's a fun bit where one of them has a gun. Well, they both have guns, and they're both blind, and they're trying to figure each other out. But I love See No Evil, Hear No Evil. This was, like I said, a pretty decent film. Like I said, if you think it's going to be like Dirty Harry or French Connection or stuff like that, it's not. But at the same time, it's not. It stands on its own. Again, I just wish maybe not as many. I appreciate it, but sometimes it just seems like it loses a bit of its focus and kind of meanders the plot, which I know is the point, but at the same time, it's not the most interesting for me to watch. Again, Louis Gossett Jr., I think, should have been the partner, and him being the third act, I think, would have helped give it a bit more personality. But like I said, being a fan of these actors, it was nice to see them do their thing. So, not a bad film at all. But change the title. It did, and it's false advertising. It doesn't even fucking laugh. Come on now. But with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.